like when you first started your business?
Let's talk about our arguments.
What arguments?
The arguments that we've had.
Oh, since then. Okay.
Because I feel like now that we've had a couple arguments lately, and I feel like people really do think that like we be like trying to like have like this cushy marriage or something like.
You think so?
Yeah, I think
That's
not that we have yet, because that would be naive. I think people look at us like we're trying to portray
that we're
things
just this
like,
perfect couple.
Let's talk about the things we've been arguing about.
Okay, what's the first thing that we argued about? What did we argue about the other day that really wasn't that big of a deal? Oh my gosh, I can't even remember off the top of my head, and it's so brand new.
Was it in the morning? It was about in the morning with Dream, right?
Yeah. So yes, that was the first argument. Yeah.
So what happened?
So the first argument was, obviously we've been trying to get Dream better in school. So Dream starts acting up one morning before school, because usually our routine is I get up, I get the kids ready for school, get them breakfast and all of that. Donnie takes them to school and picks them up. So that morning I'm doing my regular routine, and Dream starts acting out, and he'll have temper tantrums. Like he'll throw himself on the ground, or like he'll give me an attitude and be rude. And so Donnie popped him. So Donnie pops him. I'm like, okay, whatever. I keep going. Then he does something else. I think Dream, he had like his fingers in his mouth or something, and you were like still like,
yeah, he was doing
look,
that baby
take your fingers out of your mouth.
He was like sucking on his thumb, like going,
yeah,
like he was a baby. Like.
So Donnie is like, look, you gotta stop doing that, right? And the way, from my perspective, I'm like, okay, like he's still digging into him, and that's not gonna be good. So while we're trying to leave, I'm telling Donnie, I'm like, look, babe, his morning, the way that his morning goes will directly affect the rest of his school day. So I said, babe, I don't think you should whoop him in the morning, right? That turns into something, because he's trying to tell me, like, you know, basically, I don't whoop him all the time. You shouldn't assume that I will, you know. And I'm trying to explain, like, look, I'm working with the teacher. This is what the teacher is telling me, that if his morning is bad, it'll affect everything else. So, you know, we got to try to remove as many factors as possible from his morning that could cause his morning to be bad. And so Donnie's like, well, we don't know if me popping him is going to make it bad or not. And I said, yeah, I know. Like, I'm not naive. And so now we're going back and forth, because now it's like we're, again, another little small thing that just...
Because in my perspective, I'm like, well, clearly, you know, I haven't popped him in the morning, because that was one thing we talked about when he was acting up in daycare, and he wasn't acting up in daycare since, but it was one of those things where it was like, okay, yelling at him or popping him in the morning may trickle into him acting up in school. Yeah. So then my mentality was, yo, today I just decided to pop him, because I was like, yo, like, all right, today I'm gonna show you that there's still consequences, even though it's the morning, because it's been a minute. Yeah. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, clearly the lack of consequences in the morning isn't gonna cause you to have a good day in school either. So yeah, there's gonna be a consequence this morning. I'm popping your butt. That was my mentality.
Right. And so
we started going at it.
Yeah, so we were going at it because, like, I'm trying to tell him, look, I don't think you should. He's trying to say, look, you know. And honestly, I don't even remember how we were off of that. I don't remember how that got solved.
That's the important part. So, was this conversation mostly in the text?
I don't remember, honestly, man. I really don't.
So one thing with us that we really tried to do, because the thing that caused it to be an argument, I feel like, was it was less of the incident of me popping him in the morning. It was more of the fact that, you know, Zay had a problem with that. I had a problem with the fact that she mentioned it in front of the kids, because then we started arguing about it while we were in front of the kids, because then it makes it seem like we're not on the same page, and that really bothers me. So when we started texting about it, you know, we were talking about the issues, we came to the compromise of, okay, well, I think in the mornings, you should help me at least with Dreamy. So you deal with Dreamy in the morning, and I'll deal with JoJo in the morning. And then I was like, okay. And then, you know, just remember, like, you know, when we do have an issue or we disagree with something that we're doing parenting wise, like, we do not talk about it in front of the kids.
And
we
that
talk
was
about it after the fact.
Yeah, and that was a conversation we've had a lot of times, because it used to be way worse, where I used to just interject anytime, like, he was dealing with the kids in a way that I didn't think was conducive to anything good. And he was like, look, you shouldn't say it in front of the kids. And I'm like, you know, you're right. But I tried to explain that in this moment I brought it up because I knew that it would affect him as soon as he walked out of the door. So I didn't want to wait until, like, you drop him off, you come back and like, oh, hey, you shouldn't have done that, you know, because I thought in the moment, let's try to cut it out, you know. But I tried to tell him, like, yeah, I know, like, I'm tracking that there are certain times where we should bring things up and times where we shouldn't bring things up.
And my mentality was like, okay, well, I mean, I get that you wanted to bring it up, but it's not going to unpop him. So if he was going to have a bad day, he was going to have a bad day.
Yes.
Like, and if it was going to be because of me popping his butt, you mentioning it was not going to unpop him.
Yes.
So it was still going to happen.
Yeah.
That was my.
So, yeah, I think we were good after that, after we had that conversation. I don't remember anymore. And then the most recent one was this morning.
Was it this morning?
Yeah.
No, we didn't argue this morning.
Yes, we did.
No, we didn't. Yes, we did.
About when you were saying like,
that wasn't an argument. That was actually a very productive conversation. It almost got there.
Okay, yeah. I guess you're right.
That was a productive conversation. The second one was something else. It was your feelings yesterday.
Oh yeah.
That's what it was.
So what happened was, I had a meeting at work, and Donnie was putting away groceries, and when Donnie does stuff, he listens to YouTube or whatever.
This is mad funny, because this is just like everyday things. I know somebody sitting there. Yeah, my bad.
Oh my God, no, but you're right though. So he's putting away groceries. I go to do my meeting. I come back into the kitchen after my meeting, and I'm like, telling him about how the meeting went. So he pauses his thing, and he makes this face, and Donnie doesn't realize that sometimes his face or his body language will be a certain way, and it can come off as if like he's uninterested in what you're saying. So I told him what I was saying. He kind of engaged a little bit, and was talking about it with me. So then he goes into the office. I'm still in the kitchen, and I'm just thinking about it like, I don't think he really cares about what I just said.
And I'm eating an icy.
And he's eating, yes.
I'm just eating an icy like a child.
So he goes into the office, because we work together in his office now. So he goes to the office. I go into the office with him. He's eating the popsicle. He goes like, yeah, babe, this is really nasty. I'm like, oh, really? So in my mind, I'm like, all right, let me just bring it up now, because if I don't tell him how I'm feeling or whatever, it's going to fester. I'm going to have an attitude, and I don't want that.
That's also something that we worked on, like not holding on to things when it bothers you. Just bring
it up in the moment, right? So I said, babe, when I talk about work, or like you're not interested in it, because it's fine if you don't want to hear it, but like just tell me. Like I'd rather you just tell me that you don't want to hear it. So of course he's like, basically, what are you talking about? Like, I never said I didn't care. I never said I was uninterested. And that's when I mentioned his face and his body language. And he's like, it wasn't anything. Like, why are you taking this so personally? Why are you feeling this way, right? And so that turned into something, because I felt like he was trying to tell me, like, why are you so emotional? Why do you allow your emotions to just take over all the time, right? And I told him that it was, for a while, I had felt like, because he's a guy, and because I am who I am, he just hates that I'm emotional. He hates that side of me. He wishes that I could, like, cut it out of myself, throw it away, and then, I'd be perfect for him. Like, you don't want me to be emotional. You don't want me to feel anything. You don't want me to mention anything to you about how I feel, because you don't like handling it, right?
That's what she thinks.
Yes, now, that's my perception.
For context, my response to her was basically like, okay, like, and at one point when she was talking about her meeting, I was like, oh, did you still have your camera on during the meeting? And she goes, yes, I did. I was like, I bet, because I just want to make sure that like you're not just on these meetings, camera off, like making it seem like you don't care about your job or something. Because again, I just got fired, so I'm like, we don't need you getting fired. So I'm like, but she was, so I mentioned that to her, and I'm like, so at any point when you were going through this thought of like me not caring about your meeting that you're telling me about, I'm like, did you not think like, okay, he cares enough to say this, like clearly he doesn't just not care at all about me and my job. And then I'm just like, I don't really know how to react, because I'm like, you're excited about this, but I feel like I would have been excited about something that you accomplished at work, and I would have shared in the excitement. I'm like, this particular meeting that you're telling me about, I'm like, there wasn't really any enthusiasm. I'm like, moving forward, I'm like, am I supposed to fake it? Like, am I supposed to fake the enthusiasm with you? Like, because that's not who I am. I'm like, there's not really a solution. And then in response to that, not having a solution for her, I'm like, and here's something that's not a solution. Like, I'm going to present a problem to you that I have with what you said, and there's not a solution that you can give me. And it's like, why does your mind work that way? Like, why would your mind take you down that rabbit hole of, okay, maybe should I just not bring up things about work to you? And I'm just like, why did it have to go there? So that's like maybe a man's perspective of I don't know, not a problem, but like because something that's presented to them.
Yes.
It's like, yo,
even in the way that when I bring something up to Donnie, he likes to use metaphors and analogies, and I want it cut and dry. Like, if you are interested in what I'm saying, say, yeah, babe, you can tell me about work. Like, I'm interested, whatever. Don't try to use a metaphor to try to explain or try to whatever it is. Like, I don't want that. I want to just hear it. And once I hear you say, yeah, babe, it's cool. Okay, we're good then, because I don't need no analogy. I don't need a metaphor. I just want to hear it from your mouth. That was it.
It was a whole bunch of stuff.
Yes, there was a lot of stuff like in that, but it was basically the way that I perceived him and the way he perceives my feelings and how he felt about it.
Let's talk about perception real quick, because that's important.
Yeah.
So, when you're talking to your significant other, right? We like to sometimes, not we like to, but sometimes we forget that our perception is not reality. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about something, especially when we use the word always and never, you cannot use those words, because if you say you never hug me and tell me you love me, if the person never did it one time, you're a liar. So you can't use those words. And the more you use those words, you believe it, right? That's the extreme version of it. There's specific things that Zaisha will tell me about how she perceives my words. Like, okay, well, when you say this, I feel like, or not even when you say this, it's just like, I feel like when I present my problems to you, you don't care about my emotions, this, that, and the third. Then I'm like, okay, that's how you perceive it. I'm telling you I do care about it. How you perceive it is not reality. Then it's like, what was the thing that you said something about something I said? It was, because I was saying that, like, I feel like you always put yourself in this box, like this box that, like, you feel like you love more and I love you less. And it's like, so long as you're in that box, you'll always be like a victim. And I'll never, like how much, it was something like that, but I forgot what specifically it was that you said.
I don't know. There was so much.
Okay, let me just say this. So, for example, I'm trying to paint the picture about how I perceive something that she says. So how she says something to me, and I'm like, I acted out for her to give her the perception. She used words to explain how she perceived something that I said. I acted it out. So I'm like, what did I do when I acted it out?
He was acting like I'm some ratchet girl that was sitting in his face like, oh, so...
Right, like,
you don't...
oh, so you don't care about me or something
you don't
like that?
care about me,
like
acting like I was just... He was being super dramatic.
And as soon as I did... Yes, being super dramatic. But as soon as I did that, it offended her and she got tight. And I'm like, whoa, time out. Because, see, you're not understanding what I'm trying to do. And I'm like, I'm trying to let you know that is my perception of what you're saying. Yes, I'm acting it out. Yes, I'm over-exaggerating what you're saying. Yes, you didn't bat your eyes like that. You didn't turn your head like that. But that is how I perceive your words coming out. It's not reality, though, and I'm aware of that. So when you tell me about your feelings, you're telling me about your perception, and I'm not sure that you understand that it's not reality. And it's like, that could be like a man-woman issue that like, and what I was explaining to her was like, she's like, well, for you to say, why does my brain work like that? Da, da, da. I'm like, okay, let me phrase it this way. Since saying it that way is weird, let me make it more broad. Instead of asking you the question, why does your brain work that way? Let me ask you the question, why are men from Mars and why are women from Venus? Again, why does your brain work that way? There's no answer for that. That's just who you are. There's no answer for why men are the way they are and women are the way they are. So it's like when she presents me her emotions, I'm like, I'll never understand why you come to these crazy conclusions.
And I think it really boils down to men just being a lot more logical than they are emotional. And so men try to put logic into emotion, which I think is the dumbest thing ever. Because if you're such a man and you're so logical, you would understand that emotion doesn't take logical understanding. Like, you cannot put that into emotion to try to understand it. You know what I'm saying? You would think they know that, right? And they, like, men get so frustrated with women because we are more vocal about our feelings. And I think a lot of men are probably the way you are, like, why would you think that?
Like,
because a man wouldn't think that.
Like, what's wrong
but
with you?
again, if y'all are so logical and just so smart and analytical, right, you would know, okay, when I'm talking to her and she's emotional, I cannot present myself in a logical manner because they're going to clash. It doesn't make sense. So if I'm emotional, you have to approach the situation also with your emotional hat on. Okay, if I was in her position, let me try to understand how she may feel, or, you know, however you would do it as a man. But logic and emotion cannot mix, right? And I think, like he said, with the perception, because I was so offended, it was like everything he was saying to me came off like he was saying that my being emotional and that side of me was a deficit to who I was. and it was like almost one of the reasons why, you know, you wouldn't want to be with me. So of course now I'm asking him, okay, well, any of the other women that you've been with, have they been as emotional? And of course he